Welcome to the HVAC Financial Freedom Podcast, a show where we talk about HVAC business ownership and financial freedom by sharing stories and advice of experts who can help you get there. Now your host, John Victoria.
Hello and welcome to the HVAC Financial Freedom Podcast. I'm very excited for today. We have a very special guest with us on the show. He is known as the radio pitchman, Check a Pro Joe. He's the founder of Bring On Success Radio. His name is Mr. Jim Klauck. How are you doing today, Jim?
Great, John. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you on. So really excited to have you on for today. And just to kick things off, I'm curious, like for those people who do not know you yet, could you just very briefly share with everyone who you are and how did you get to end up doing what you're doing now?
So I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm an entrepreneur, business owner, author, and back in 2005, I started Check a Pro, which is a resource to help homeowners find pre-qualified home service providers. But at the same time, I want to help those contractors become better at what they do in serving the homeowner. And so started Check a Pro back in '05 and have been doing that for close to 20 years now. And we promote what we do on air all over the country for our home service providers, for the homeowner to hear that company and what they can do for them. And what we do is relatively unique. All the stuff that we do are things that have been done before, but the way it's packaged for home service is a little different.
That's amazing. And before we hop into Check a Pro as well, could you just quickly share contact details? Like if someone's interested in reaching out to you, what's the best way for them to get in contact?
Sure. The best way is joe@checkapro.com. That's my email address. And my phone number, 281-398-PROS or 281-398-7767. And of course, you can go to checkapro.com.
Gotcha. Perfect. So let's hop in. I'd love to dive deeper into Check a Pro as well as the radio show. And from my understanding, it's such a powerful and unique way to reach a home service owner's target customers. And from my understanding, it started out as a more local effort and expanded to now a nationwide reach. And so you've had some companies recently I saw on the show, Garage Door Doctor, Environmental Protect Water Softeners, Koala Insulation. And so I guess just to dig into it, I'm curious, like what are the unique benefits of someone going onto the show versus doing some other type of any form of advertising?
That's a great question. And I hear that question a lot. The biggest difference is it's really kind of old-fashioned touch. So I grew up in a time before the electronic media age, before social media, before Google, before the internet. And back in the day, people got to know people from their television commercials, from their exposure on radio, even maybe a written profile in a local newspaper or a magazine. And a lot of the people who patronize our contractors, in other words, the homeowner, are 50 plus. These are people who are used to the old fashioned picking up the phone and listening to the radio. And so in our long format program, John, which is about an hour long, people can get to know not just me, but who I'm representing on the radio. It's an air conditioning company, it's a roofer, it's a foundation company, how long they've been in the area, what their core values are, their customer service, and how they can help that listener. The listener's listening. They might be listening for weeks because we air that program over and over again every week. And we allow that homeowner to engage, believe it or not, by the old-fashioned telephone. However, the good news is people have phones everywhere they are. So as they're driving around town, they're like, you know what? I want to call for and I want to ask them questions, or I want to hire them because I feel comfortable with them. And as you know, most people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. What better way by getting to know them on the radio?
love that. And it's so true. Like what is going to make you stand out from all the other companies that are in the area? And what a better way than to actually share the story, the core values, and really just get to see this person as a person. It's not just some business. It's like, hey, it's tied with a story, and everything that comes with that business. And that's amazing. And I believe that you have a specific process as well for it's not just a normal radio show, but it is geared towards getting a call to action. Could you speak more to
Yes.
that process and how you design it to get people to actually call in?
Yeah. So in my book, The Radio Pitchman, I talk about direct response radio. A lot of people aren't sure what that is. So I say, well, it's like an infomercial. We've all watched the infomercials on television for the exercise equipment or for the blender, an item like that, where the product is introduced, there's a price, but hold on, there's only 100 of these today. But wait, there's more. We'll throw in an egg slicer as well and a spatula. But you need to call now. Well, I know it sounds hokey and cheesy, but that's what we do on the radio program. So, for an insulation company, for instance, we might say it's ordinarily $1.50 a square foot for a 6-inch ad of blown in insulation. But today, our insulation company is offering it for only 99 cents, and they'll throw in a free attic stairway insulator. You got to call now, though. These are limited. Guess what? The phone rings.
Yep, that's
It
amazing.
works.
So gearing
Yeah.
towards that, there's those psychological triggers, the immediacy of it. Oh, it's a discount. It's limited in terms of
Yep.
how many amounts. So let me call in to get a discount on that deal.
Yeah, so scarcity is very important. But before we get into all of that on the program, we build it up. We talk about how great the company is, what they do in the community, why it's important to have insulation, lowering your utility bills and being more comfortable in your home. And a lot of people who are listening are thinking, you know what? Maybe I could save money on my electric bill. Maybe I could be more comfortable. And our target audience, John, are 50 plus. Many of these people are in their forever home, a fixed income, but they're not paying for college anymore. They don't have kids at home anymore. They are paying for comfort because they don't even travel much anymore. They're spending time in their lazy boy chair watching TV. That AC has to work. The insulation better be doing its job, and the plumbing better work.
Yes, and I love how you hit on the demographics. Could you also dig more into what that looks like? Because I'm sure that I believe it's on your website. It's you have a breakdown of the age and the gender and the interests. And could you talk more about
Yes.
that for someone who's interested in learning more about potentially segmenting the types of customers that they're focusing in on? And is there I guess with that as well, is the show just broadcasted in general, or is this something that you segment? Or I'm just trying to get a better understanding myself.
Sure, absolutely, John. So, to answer your first question, the show is broadcast in specific markets. So we have clients in Atlanta, Panama City, Austin, Texas, Dallas, Houston, Nashville, and it's broadcast on the old fashioned, what they call terrestrial radio, an old fashioned tower on AM or FM. And the people who are listening to that are people who are 50 plus. So the demographics are people who are generally people who listen to talk radio. Many of them happen to be conservative. Many of them happen to be 50 plus. They're educated. They're homeowners. Those are all the things you want to hear because you don't want to hit a 21-year-old who's an apartment dweller who doesn't have the money or even have the ability to have something like that done. So go on to a radio station in any given market. We make sure that the demographic of that station is in that space, is exactly 50 plus educated homeowners. And it's kind of fun to do that because our team has to research that out. In some ways, it's kind of simple for us. It's pretty predictable. We know where to go to find that listener. But I'll tell you a little bit of a secret too, because some people say, hey, Jim, so when you do the show, how long does it take for people to trust you to call us to get the air conditioning replaced in a homeowner's home? I said it can happen within 10 or 15 minutes.
Wow.
And they say, you mean 10 or 15 weeks? I said, no, because the individual who's listening to my radio program is loyal to the radio station. I'm on the radio station. Therefore, they believe I am part of the radio station and they are now loyal to me. And so it's not like throwing these darts out there. Everything is very strategic. And we go to a demographic who's a very loyal demographic to a radio station. Now, on top of that, we also podcast it. So when we broadcast it, it's also podcasted and it's on Spotify and Audible and Google and Apple and you name it, it's on it. So our clients not only get the broadcast, but they get the podcast. So if you go to any of the major apps, let's say you're on Spotify or Audible and you type in certain keywords, that program will come up.
Wow. That's so powerful for their SEO, their organic advertising, just having that regular content because most businesses don't have something like that in place. So not only do you have this uh, um, broader reach via the radio, but also you now have this reach organically as well. So that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's taking the old technology
Yes.
and blending it with the new technology. And when broadcast towers where there's only so much space on the dial, some people are like, "Oh, I think my grandparents used to listen to radio." I'm like, "Yeah, and they may be the target actually, so that's not so bad." And it's really exciting though, because I grew up in the 80s. There was no internet. If you can believe that, back when I was young, there was no internet. The phones were screwed to the wall. And you didn't call people, you called places and asked if the person was at that place. Very different time. And it's exciting for me to take my experience because I started radio back in 84. To take my experience from 1984 and blend it into the media today, which is predominantly electronic. However, though, I will say for home service providers, when you think about the top home service providers, the biggest HVAC companies in town, plumbers, roofers, they're advertising on the old mediums. They're on TV, they're on radio, and of course they do all the social media as well. But I find it very exciting to take my experience from the 80s and go all the way into the apps of today. It is great to know that anywhere in the world someone can hear our production on their phone or computer.
Love that. And just to dig into the numbers, like how, let's say that I was a home service professional and I was curious about, what is my potential reach? I know you
Mhm.
mentioned that the show is aired multiple times and you syndicate it to the podcast as well. What could someone expect maybe after 3 or 4 months? Like what is that footprint that they have with the show?
So there's variables there. The main variable is what radio station and what market is
True.
it on? So is it on the number one talk station in Atlanta or in Houston or in Los Angeles? If
Mhm.
that's it, you're going to have more calls and you know what to do with, and you're going to pay accordingly for that. You're not really paying me, you're paying the radio station. We have to actually buy radio time for that. So it's a little tricky, John, to answer that question, but it really depends on what you're buying. So you pretty much get what you pay for. Now, on the we'll call it social media side, that's endless and it's really hard to say. But one advantage to it, and I tell my clients this all the time, hey, just because you're on the radio doesn't mean everyone knows you are. So you need to tell
Mhm.
people you're on the radio. So take the actual radio podcast, which is online, and push it out. Tell your clients, hey, you know what? If you need something like this, we actually talked about it on the radio program last week. So it's great for a technician or a salesperson out at the site when the homeowner says, so I don't understand the difference between a 3 ton and a 5 ton. And you say, hey, you know what? I think about 3 episodes ago on our radio program, we discussed that. And they go, radio program? The other AC guys don't have a radio program. I know. So it's a point of differentiation, even if the homeowner never hears the show.
Yes. I love that. And I love your use of it as well. It's not just can we get new potentially new customers. Also, you can advertise it to your current customer base to potentially rehash them or re-engage them to come back because, oh, it's another reason to reach out. Like this is we have a show that's out. We have an episode that could be helpful. And for tracking, how do you guys like have a call tracking number in place
Oh,
to track calls?
yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, it's a little old fashioned with new technology. It's the old phone number. All right. It's the old, 555-1212 number, but they're tracking numbers. And we deliver to our clients every week a report on who called, what time they called, what their name is, and the audio recording of the call if they wish to hear it. And everything is seamlessly sent over through the system. So we give out the tracking number, and that tracking number can be pointed to any destination the client wants. Hopefully, because a lot of our programming is on the weekends, it's not sent to someone's cell phone. Hopefully, it's going to a qualified call center or someone who isn't around screaming babies and barking dogs.
Yeah.
You know how that goes.
100%. And I guess to that point as well, is there a certain size of company that this is meant for? Like, would your one man shop want to hop on the radio show, or is it someone who is more established, has that CSR team, and they're ready to field all these calls? Depending on the market, of course. But is it meant for everyone? Is it meant for a specific type of company?
It's really not meant for everyone. And we've tried it with everyone. The ones it really works best for are the companies that are established, who really have systems. And I won't get into the details of that, but so many people have decided to leave their job as a plumber to become an owner of their own plumbing company, and they're great technicians, but they're not in business yet. They don't understand business yet. So I'm really looking for clients to help. Remember what I said earlier, I want to help winners win more. I'm looking
Yeah.
for winning companies. The other ones need to graduate a little bit first. So these are companies, in terms of trucks, let's say they have at least 10 trucks. They have a couple customer service reps. They know how to answer their phone. If it's not going to their phones, is it going to a call center? I want to make sure that call center isn't a generic answering service. There's a big difference between an answering service who answers for an HVAC company 1 second, and the next second for a dentist. They drive me crazy. And I hear a lot of these calls because we record everything, so I can really get into it and then give advice to the client. But once again, the ideal home service provider, John, is going to be somebody or a company has probably 10 or more trucks. And I think we all know what that means.
Yeah.
In our business, when we talk about trucks, we know how many technicians. So let's say 10, 15 technicians, a company that's doing a few $1,000,000 probably a year minimum. But really, the bigger, the better. We can really complement larger size service providers. We're not going to be their number one source of leads. We are going to be a little extra fuel that gets thrown onto the flame.
Amen to that. And it's powerful too. I had someone on the podcast earlier this week, and we talked about the omnipresence effect. So what they did is they do truck
Yes.
wraps, and it's very tough to quantify. Oh, let's say someone saw the truck that was wrapped, and then they go to Google, and then now they click on the website, and now that's attributed to, let's say, SEO. But it's much more complicated than that because it's the omnipresence of I saw your trucks, I saw you online, and then I also heard you on the radio broadcast. And it's that omnipresence effect which creates the results versus, 1 plus 1 is 2. It's 1 plus 1 equals a lot more than that. And so that's the powerful thing that I love about what you're doing. It's really
Omnipresence is so critical. I think Grant Cardone talks about that a lot, being present, being always there, like Google, Amazon, Coca-Cola, McDonald's. Okay, those are extreme examples. But in home service in your town, wherever that is, whether it's a big city or small, you want to be top of mind. So, to your point, wrapping vehicles, okay, that needs to be consistent with what your website looks like. It needs to be consistent with your billboard if you have billboards. And then, of course, your social media, television, radio, and it needs to be relatively cohesive, which actually brings me to a point that when we do a radio program for a client, we of course do research to get a feel for what they are and what they do in that market. What do they look like already? We don't want to change their image. We want to enhance it. We're not in the business of coming and saying, hey, you're a winning company and we're going to change that. No, you're a winning company. So we want to work with you. We like the way you do things and how you approach it. And we're going to then take that and continue down that road with a medium you're not on.
I love that. So it's not a rebuild. It's let's amplify your
Yes.
voice, your character, so you're further into your market.
Yes, we aren't branding experts in that way. I don't want to be in that business. There's professionals that do that. Like I said, think about this. When I say we want to help winners win more, they're already moving down the road. We just want to kind of give a little wind behind them, right? Just, make it a little more aerodynamic, help them out. We are not going to be the 100% solution. I have had contractors call me, little guys. It's always the little guy who says, you know what? I've heard a lot about you. Boy, it would be great if you could, be 50% of our lead source. And I'm like, I don't know if I want that pressure. No, that's not what we do. You sound desperate. And I really don't want to work with desperate people. And it took me a long time, like actually decades, John, to figure out that maybe I shouldn't be helping the people who always need help over and over again. I will help them in general off the air, get to the point where I can put them on the air. But, radio costs money. It's a serious business and I'm serious about getting it done for you, but it's really kind of for the big boys.
Gotcha. For the big boys. And I guess so. One other question I had to build off of this was, let's imagine that we have someone that comes to you and they do not feel very confident in their public speaking. Is would they be a good fit? How does your team work with them to coach them up so that when they're on the air, they are engaging, entertaining to listen to versus I don't want to listen to this. How do you close that gap for someone who's not as confident with their communication abilities?
That's a good question. So there are some clients where I say, you know what? Don't worry about it. We have voice actors that will play your part. So we don't really need to have the home service provider involved. There are some who really insist, who say, look, I'd really like to have my number one technician. He's been in the business forever, or my marketing guy, or the owner of the company. And then I'll say, well, let's get on a Zoom call or, let's get on the phone and let's listen to how this is going to go. But I actually contract professional experts in their respective fields in home service to sit on the other side of the desk from me with a microphone and actually play the part of the company. So they get deputized, if you will. So we ask the company, can we have Mr. X who works with us here represent your company? So what we'll say is, so for instance, Tom is someone that we use, and I'll say, Tom is joining me today from Acme Company in Cleveland, Ohio. Tom's never been to Acme Company, but he's done research. He is a paid actor. We'd actually see that a lot on TV commercials. It'll say, this is not a doctor, it's a paid actor. And it plays well because I have a great rapport with these voice actors. They are
Yes.
part of my team and they understand the HVAC business and or the roofing business in general terms because for the most part we're not answering questions from callers. Understand, we don't take callers. This is an infomercial. We know exactly what we're pitching. There's a deal on a water softener today or a solar attic fan or there's 5,000 off of the HVAC system if you buy 2 units. Whatever it is, there's a specific offer and we're more salespeople than we are technicians.
Mm,
Does that make sense?
that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. So you really close the gap. There is no excuse. Like even if someone's not confident in their communication or doesn't even have anyone on the team, you have people in place who you have rapport with where they're already trained in your sales process. And so that makes this such a converting mechanism to bring people to call versus like, it's a lot of variables with the person that's on with you.
Yes. So we control the environment. It is a sterile environment. If you go back and listen to some of those podcasts of the broadcasts that we've done, John, and you listen carefully and dissect it, you'll see it's very intentional and deliberate. Every 7 minutes, the average listener on broadcast radio tunes out. Much like we know, we don't want to do a video more than 3 minutes or maybe even 90 seconds on social media. Really, the shorter the better, right? Broadcast is the same way. People tune in and out every 7 minutes. So when you listen to our broadcast, which is on the podcast as well, because that's where the podcast comes from, you'll find we repeat everything every 7 minutes. We give the phone number out more often than every 7 minutes. We're talking about the company. So we're actually giving free branding to our clients. Our clients are really paying us for the phone to ring, but at the same time, we're saying Acme Company, and here's their phone number, Acme Company. So when they get that direct response phone call, which pays for their radio, that whole hour, John, they are getting what I call free branding,
Yes.
where some companies will pay for branding and hope that the phone rings someday. And we see that a lot with HVAC and plumbing and electrical because we don't know where people are. When people hear a radio commercial for plumbing, do they call right away and say, "Oh, yeah, my pipe's been leaking for 2 days now"? So they hope they remember it later. About direct response radio is we are solving a need now, and that phone will ring now. And I will say this in case people are curious. Will the phone ring after that hour program? Yes, they sometimes trickle in, especially if it's a broadcast from Saturday and Sunday. Monday is going to be your busiest next day from those. But generally during the week, you're not going to hear anything again until the next week. It is defined because we tell them we're going to start off with 8 or 10 of these offers. At the end of the show, that is it. And we justify why there's only 8 or 10. And the justification is something along the lines of this. Tom's in today from Acme Company, and I've asked him to do me a favor for my listeners. Would he please give this deal? Deal is so sharp that he can't give it to more than 10 of our listeners today. And so we justify it, and it makes sense to the listener. And they're like, I'm in on this deal. Boy, did I get a great deal. And the phone rings.
It's amazing. I love it. And it's just amazing how you're supporting home service professionals all around the country. And it's not only with this show, but also it is with your Bring On Success radio podcast, which I wanted to dive into. And for anyone who's not familiar, it's a podcast for winning home service professionals, and you've had some amazing people on. Michael Gerber, everyone knows him. Ivan Meisner, Dave Ramsey, Tommy Mello, Al Levi, just incredible people. And I guess just to kick things off, I wanted to touch on what you mentioned earlier, which was the transition of someone wearing the technician hat to someone who's actually a business owner. Right? You said that some people have worked for a company. They're good at what they do, but do they know how to run a business? So could you speak to that and maybe some of the lessons you've learned from some of the guests you've had on your show?
Sure. So we've all heard of the guy or the gal who is so good at what they do and their boss doesn't know what they're doing and they're mistreated. I as a plumber or an electrician or a roofer can do this much better than my company I'm working for. So I'm going to leave. Maybe I'll take a couple of guys with me. I'm not sure how I'm going to pay them, but I'm going to leave and I'm going to start my own business. So they may literally be the best air conditioning technician in town. They could be, but what do they know about hiring, firing, sales, marketing, accounting? There's a lot as a business owner. And there's a big difference between being a great technician and a business owner. And Michael Gerber of the E-Myth talks about this a lot. And a lot of these technicians will work really hard in their business, but not on their business. And so, as Michael Gerber talks about, you've got to spend time on your business. And what's the difference? Basically, in your business is I've got to go and fix the homeowner's air conditioning system. That's part of your job. I need to pay people. I need to advertise and market. That's in the business. On the business is getting away from all that everyday routine and growing your business, scaling it, educating yourself, educating your team, and working on the business so it can move forward. And many of these little guys stay little guys. I mean, John, how many people have you met where you've said, "Hey, how long have you been in this business?" And they say 20 years and they have 2 trucks.
Yep.
And then you
Very
meet some
common.
people who've been in business for 2 years and they have 20 trucks. Hmm. So one is a self-employed business owner and the other one is a business owner. So there's the self-employed guy, and then there is the business owner. And here's how you can really tell the difference. And if you are one of these technicians I'm talking about who believe you're a business owner, here's the biggest difference. If you were not to show up to work today or tomorrow, how much revenue would you do? If the answer is, well, none, because I have to be there, I don't believe you own a business. I
Yes.
believe that you are self-employed, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's just you can't transfer that business to someone else. They might buy your customer list, might get a little money, but they're not going to buy your business because they can't buy you. You're no longer in it. You're the business. That's it.
And how do you say someone would make that transition? There's it's a chasm, right? For someone who has is just a technician and hasn't really learned the business side of things. How does someone make that leap? It's a chasm, but it's an important one to make to go from self-employed to actual business owner. So I'm just curious, like
Yeah.
what would that look like?
It is a chasm, and be careful. You may end up down in the crevasse there, all messed up. So I believe, and many people that I've talked to over the years believe this. The most difficult transition isn't from 5 trucks to 10 trucks or 5 technicians to 10 technicians. It's from you to your first hire. So you've got that truck, you're the technician, you're the licensed plumber, and now you want to duplicate yourself. That 100% increase from you to them is huge. You need another truck, you need to pay them, you need to insure them, you need to manage them. And a lot of people are like, this guy's not me. I want him to clone me. Well, you got to deal with employees. But when you're scaling and you're going from 5 to 6, 7, 8, 9 techs, you're kind of moving along. You have systems. You're not as personal anymore with it. You're not worried that they're not just like you. They're a technician that fits and is working well. And then when you go, from 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to 100 techs, now you're really in business and it's just a business and things are less personal. But then you can actually transfer your business, meaning sell it much easier one day. And if you have that many technicians and you're profitable, you will have people calling you to purchase your business, especially lately.
Yes, the multiples are insane with private equity at the moment.
Huge.
Oh, and I guess in terms of other mindset things, I'm a big guy about personal development mindset. What other things have you noticed are common mindsets or trends amongst these very successful home service professionals that you've interacted with? Because they just think differently, and a number of them that I speak to, they just seem to bend reality. So I'm curious, like, what other things have you noticed about these people?
So I had a summit at my place back in February, and I invited some key home service professionals at what I consider a very high level. And I asked all of them before they came to this meeting, this summit, I asked them what book would they recommend to other home service providers. And so when they told me, and some of them were the same, many people said Michael Gerber's E Myth. And I said, well, no, that one's been taken. You have to then go back and give me a new one. So I purchased all those books. I went to Amazon and purchased them all. Then I had all the books out on a table. And this was a small gathering of about 15 home service providers. Okay, this wasn't a big group. This is an intimate group. It was a day event at my ranch in Texas. And it was an opportunity for people to get together to get to know each other. But I wanted to do this exercise on books because we've all heard that readers are leaders, right? So all the books are out there on the table if you can picture this. And I went up to the table and I picked a book up and I said, who is the one that recommended this book? And someone would say, like Tommy Mello was there. Tommy would say, oh, yeah, no, I love that book. And this is what I got out of the book. And he said, not only that, I know the author of the book. Not only that, I wrote that book over there. And I know all those books, and I've met 30% of the authors on that table. So the moral of the story is read, write what you know, because if we teach, we learn more. We've all heard that before. Just don't read. Read it, write it down, and then basically regurgitate to others, or at least speak it back to yourself. And so the number one thread, the common thread is reading. Once again, old fashioned stuff right now. I'm a big consumer of Audible. I listen to books. I consume at least one book a week minimum. And I used to read a lot. Now I listen a lot because I can do a lot of things at once. I'm on my bike, out, um, doing work on the ranch, whatever I'm doing. Not doing a radio program. I got to focus on that. But when I'm doing things that are mindless, if you will, I consume this stuff. But I don't just consume random things, and they're not novels. These are basically self-help, the improvement things. Okay, I'm working on the improvement of myself, but it's just not random. I'll ask people who are leaders in the field that I'm looking into, and I'll ask them reading. What do you recommend? And there are just so many commonalities. And it ends up being kind of a small community too. I've gotten to know a lot of great leaders in home service, and there's no coincidence. The ones that are at the top read a lot, they write, they do podcasts, they're guests on podcasts, they speak, and they go to conferences, and they know everybody.
And I think one other thing aside from just reading the writing is you've mentioned the networking component. As you mentioned with Tommy, he knew all the authors, and for yourself as well. You reach out and you built this strong community of people that you can tap into. I'm curious, like for someone who, I mean, whether they're just starting out or someone who's just looking to develop more relationships, what is your relationship development strategy? Like how do you get to know these amazing people?
I make sure I'm where they are. So going to conferences. Now it's interesting because a couple weeks ago, I had breakfast with the founder and CEO of a very, very large home service provider company in Texas. Known him for a long time. And he asked me this question because he's kind of amazed. He says, Jim, how do you get these people on your podcast? How do you know this author? How do you know this specialist? And I said, I pick up the phone, I email them, I ask someone who's friends with them on Facebook, can you connect me? And you'll find that the people who are of this type, who are out there speaking, who are writing, who are everywhere, they want to help you. That's who they are. And just ask them, and they will connect you. And we're not all that far away from anybody.
100%. It's so surprising, especially with the internet, how interconnected we are as people, and also just with the A players. It seems like all the A players know each other in one way or another, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I
It
think it's
it
very intentional.
It's not. Like people want to be with like people, and winners want to be with winners. And I know it sounds harsh when someone like me might say, I don't want to be around losers. I'm willing to help somebody who wants to be a winner. But if they've decided, well, I don't know, I've been doing this for 20 years and it's the same old, da, 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 I can't change their mindset. It's the ones that say, you know what? I'm new to this, but yeah. But I'm gonna make this, happen. And it's really fun to watch some of these young people in home service who are just killing it. And it amazes me. I'll see some of these people and they're running $100 million companies and they're 33 years old. I'm like, huh? And then you see this guy who's 65 and he never did more than 1 million a year in revenue ever. But we're just talking about different animals, or as I like to call athletes. They're just different athletes out there. And I like to
Mm,
be around a team of professional athletes because I want to win.
I love it. Awesome. And the other thing I want to dig into is that on your website, you have 10 rules for business success. I'm
Yes.
not going to read all of them, but for some of the people who are listening, here's some of the rules. Number one, work on your business, not in your business. Number five, exercise and maintain a healthy diet. Number eight, form strategic alliances with other companies or individuals. Could you speak to a few of these rules and how you came up with these rules for success?
Oh, they're not mine. Nothing's unique here. So, working on your business and not in your business, that's Michael Gerber's email.
Yes.
And I believe in that. Um, you know, like I had mentioned before, you can't just work in your business. If you do, you're going to be that self-employed one truck technician, salesperson, uh, floor sweeper, toilet cleaner of your own place. I mean, that's what you're going to do. Now, when it comes to like diet and exercise, it doesn't matter about anything else. I mean, this sounds extreme, but if you're dead, it just doesn't matter anymore. If you're
Yes.
not healthy and you can't work or help others, it doesn't work that way. So we really need to take care of ourselves. So I believe in eating well and exercising a lot. And when I first came up with that list of 10, there's something that I didn't understand, but I found it very important today. And there's been more, and that's sleep.
Sleep.
For many people, sleep may be more important than exercise because and you can exercise, but if you sleep 3 hours a day, it may be all for naught. It could kill you. So I believe in 8 hours of sleep. So I have lights out at a certain time. I try to have consistent sleep. So for me, it's drinking a lot of water, eating well. I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, and it's like a lot. And when I tell people what I eat, they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's 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 crazy." But and then and I exercise. I exercise for at least 90 minutes a day.
Mm.
No, I like to ride my bike every day if I can. And I don't work out hard. I've actually injured myself before in the gym. And so, and that's fine. So I'm not trying to be Mr. Universe, but I'm fit and I just want to be in good shape. Try to keep my weight in check and have decent muscle tone, but really cardiovascular is important to me. I don't want to be huffing and puffing going up and down the staircase.
Yes. And the thing I'll add too, which I've been learning more and more of the importance of it. It's actually just getting sunlight. I think you're lucky. You're in Texas. You get a lot of sunlight. You're on the ranch, but I noticed how different my mind quality and my sleep is if I got sun that day or not. And I have a fitness coach, and he's just been doing the research on it. He's saying that sometimes sunlight can be even more important than food. Sometimes, like that's how critical it is to your health.
It is
Uh,
so important for the chemicals in our brain. And they talk about vitamin D. The best way to get vitamin D is directly from sunlight. And then you hear from people who say, well, wait, you can't have exposure because of ultraviolet rays and it's bad for your skin and cancer. You need some of it to really feel good. And I don't understand how these successful companies in Seattle are so successful. It
oh,
is dark and rainy all the time. There's such great products out there. All these tech companies, right? But I used to live in Vancouver, British Columbia, and it rains all winter long. And in the summer, it gets sunny a little bit. But no, it's true. It's so important to have sunlight.
Love it. Um, and as we're closing in on 15 minutes, but just want to I guess move to the close of the show. Um, what I want to ask you, since this show is about financial freedom, and on your site you mentioned that you're living a dream, and so I'm just curious, like what does life look like for you on a continual basis, and why do you do what it is that you do?
So I actually have a list of things that I didn't share with you, and it's basically Jim's list for success on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I work hard, but I'm not considered a workaholic. what you might consider a workaholic. Some people might say, well, how come you're not working that hard? Because I want to have a good balance in my life. I have two children that are grown now. I have a wonderful wife. I like to be mentally and physically healthy. So I take a lot of time, as I had mentioned before. I sleep 8 hours a day. So that takes up a third of my day. And I spend 90 minutes a day minimum on my feet or on my bike exercising. And I take time to prepare my food. I do a lot of education. I do a lot of reading or listening. And then I work. It is a true balance. I am blessed enough, though, to be able to pick and choose my clients at this stage of my career. I only work with winning companies, with people who really want to win, and it's great. I don't have to take any client I don't want to take. I've had businesses like that before where you just have to, and I don't. And I'm living the dream. I'm a very blessed person. I truly am living the dream. Many people would probably like to live that type of balanced life. How many people have we met who are they're overweight, they're stressed, their marriage is falling apart, their business is just about to implode, and they're just not happy.
Yes. So
And so,
frustrating.
yeah,
And
it's
and
tough.
why do you do what it is that you do? Like, because a lot of what you do is focused on impact. And even prior to this show, I we were talking about how for us, it's not about necessarily getting the biggest reach, but if we can impact that one person, that transformation makes it all worth it. So I'm just curious, like, why do you continue to do what you do? Why not just say, hey, let me just chill and hang out
Yeah.
and be on the ranch and let's not do any work anymore?
Yeah, well, I've thought about that. And there are some days where I'm like, why am I doing this? Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Um, Certainly to help others. And I really love to help the two distinct groups that I touch on my radio programs. And that is, of course, the homeowner who's listening to the radio program. I want to help that consumer. And I want to help business owner get more business in what I consider a great medium and in a proper way and a legitimate way to get business. So that's why I do it. Now, personally, I do it also because it's something that I understand, something I'm good at. I've been doing it for decades, and I really need to have a purpose. There's really nothing else I'd rather do. I don't want to open up an ice cream shop, and I don't want to learn how to act. Um, so I I'm doing what I'm doing. Once again, I'm living the dream, doing what I want to do at the rate I want to do it, and I can basically schedule things and balance it out. So, in scaling my business, it's a little difficult. We talked about the difference between someone who's self-employed and someone who's a business owner. I'll be honest with you. I claim to have a business, but if I decide not to work, those radio programs do not air. So it's like Tom Brady. He's playing football again, by the way. And so if he doesn't show up to throw, okay, there is no game for him. He's kind of self employed, right? He is the guy. And that's true of anyone else who does what they do on their own. And so I love what I do, love helping others, and I'll continue to do it for as long as I can.
Awesome. I guess what's next? Like, what's the vision for the future? You can take that however you want. It could be next 5 years, further than that. Like, what is that vision of what you want to build towards?
To continue what I'm doing on what's called terrestrial radio, which is the AM and FM bands, and continue to grow with all of the other mediums that are coming out of the electronic world, everything online. There's platforms that are growing every day. We place our radio programs for our clients on all these different apps. And every couple of months there's a new app to put the audio on. And so that's going to be ever changing. And it's exciting to see that change and a little bit of a challenge to stay on top of it. And that's really where the growth is. And we know we've never seen more growth in technology as we have today. And tomorrow will be more, and the next day will be more. And I don't know what the future brings. If we were talking 50 years ago, it'd be very simple because all we knew was television, radio, and newspapers. I'm serious. That was it. Today, it's something that has to do with the internet. I'm pretty sure about that.
It's a question mark what that is. We got the metaverse going on. People buying virtual land. Like we don't know. It's
Exactly.
gonna be a wild next few decades.
It will be. Yeah.
Also, so any parting words for any listeners to the show?
No, I'm here for you. I understand what you're going through, what your dreams are as home service professionals. Some of you are companies that are smaller, wanting to scale up. Some of you are already larger, you're moving along. If there's anything I can help you with, anyone I can introduce you to, just let me know.
Awesome. And one last reminder of how can people get into contact with you?
Okay, by email, it's joe@checkapro.com. And the reason why it's Joe and not Jim is because I call myself Checkapro Joe on the radio. That's my air name, joe@checkapro. You can also call me 281-398-7767. And you can simply just go to checkapro.com and it's all there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jim. Again, everyone, the radio pitchman, the Check a Pro Joe. Thank you so much for being on for today. I hope everyone was able to take some great nuggets, not just from being able to be on a radio broadcast that's focused on a call to action, but lessons on how to transition from the technician to the owner, and just some general mindset shifts that some of the best home service professionals have adopted in their life. So thanks so much, everyone. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next podcast episode.
Thank you for joining us for the HVAC Financial Freedom Podcast. Follow us on StreamYard, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and check out our main website, www.hvacfinancialfreedom.com, to find out how you can also achieve financial freedom.